Right, it is now 3:30 and time to start the meeting. Welcome everybody to today's meeting. My name is Xavier Taylor. So today, or before we get the meeting started, I'd like to make a few announcements. First, mute your microphone when not speaking so you do not disturb the speaker. Next, try to limit any loud noises in the background when speaking as to not disturb the audience. Third, support your speakers with your warm jazz hands. As grammarian, I count all your speaking mistakes, such as likes and ahs and ums. And at the end, I'll give you a count of everybody. And now for our timers rule. I'd like to bring up Mr. Don Gray.
Thank you, Toastmaster Taylor. Greetings, everyone. As your timer, I will time the table topics, formal speeches, and the evaluations that are done during the meeting. I will also alert each speaker of the time they have left using the green, the yellow, and the red virtual background. When you don't see a red color, you will be seeing a yellow timer's clock. You should pay attention to the timer's clock so you will be alerted to your time. And the time here, table topics should be limited no more than 2 minutes. At 1 minute, once you reach that limit of 1 minute, you will see the green. That simply tells you that you have qualified your speech. The yellow will come up at 1 minute and 30 seconds to alert you it's time to start closing out. At 2 minutes, you will see the green virtual background. At the end of your speech, I will go back to the timer clock. Today, we have one speech of 5 to 7 minutes. At 5 minutes, you will see the green, which will alert you that you have qualified. 6 minutes, you will see the yellow to tell you that it's now time to start closing. And at 7 minutes, you will see the red. It'll go back to white. The individual evaluations today are from 2 to 3 minutes. At 2 minutes, you will see the green. 2 minutes and 30 seconds the yellows, and at 3 minutes the red. You will have a 30-second grace period at the end of your speech, or at the beginning and at the end of your speech to close out. All speakers have a 30-second grace period. Back to you, Toastmaster Taylor.
The introduction of the timers rule, Mr. Don Gray. It is now time for us to bring up our first speaker.
Horace has graciously accepted as a speaker.
All right, well, now that we got that settled, now I'd like to bring up our first speaker, Mr. Horace Taylor.
All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Let me begin by saying first, hello, Memphis Gavel Club. Today, I'd like to share with you what I'm calling a hair-raising event that nearly caused me to fly the coop. I'll explain a little bit more in detail. In September of 2021, my son, Zachary, earned his student pilot license or certificate from the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA. Since then, I've flown with him once. So to try to give you a sense of the joy and elation that I felt, I will share my screen as I tell this story. There's this application that allows anyone to track any flights in the sky. So Zachary was kind enough to provide us his tail wing number so that we could find him amongst all the aircraft that was flying in the sky. That's not so bad, because if you think about it, as people are driving along the highway, there are thousands, millions of cars on the road at any given time. Well, as you could imagine, when you're flying in the sky, there are literally millions of planes in the sky at any one moment. But the really unique piece about it is you're able to isolate one plane and you can track that plane wherever it's going. That's what this story is all about. Now, as you can see on the screen before you, and let me make it just a little bit larger. That number there on the left side of the screen, November 20431, is my son's flight call sign, if you will. In a moment, you will see there in the middle of the screen, it says Corinth, Mississippi. There in the middle of the screen, again, you see Corinth, Mississippi, and you see several images of aircraft in different colors. That orange strip that goes all the way out to Corinth takes that loop, and it's that plane or that image is on its way back. That is, in fact, the image of my son flying solo. That's not so bad. In fact, what I did, I turned on the filters so I could filter out everybody else but him. Then I said, that's really kind of boring. So I turned the filter back off, and now I can see all the aircraft in the area. And again, if you see him right there in the middle of the screen, you still see Corinth, and you see that little orange Cessna icon. Matter of fact, if you look at the screen, you see several orange Cessna aircraft, as well as passenger jet planes and the like. Well, this is what's really neat. If you look at the bottom of the screen, you see that orange scale that goes from orange all the way out to purple, right? What the different colors shows are the different altitude at which the aircrafts are flying. That's why it may appear to the unsuspected person, these airplanes are on top of each other. Well, technically that is so, but they're at different elevations, so they're not technically on top of each other. Not in the physical, well, actually in the physical sense, but in the third dimension, if you will, they are. Now, there you see in the middle of the screen, my son has left Corinth and is on his route back to Olive Branch, Mississippi. What you will notice, and here's where the hair-raising aspect of the trip was, as though I was on the trip. I was not on a trip. I was just simply sitting at my computer at work, observing the screen, this application as he was flying. So there you see he's coming back to Memphis. He's already flown from the Olive Branch Airport all the way out to Corinth, and now he's making his way back. Now, this image right here, I will freeze it and explain what's going on. What's happening here, if you can see my mouse on the screen, I'm right now hovering over Corinth. And that little red line that's going all the way back to Gavel, there was previously an airplane on that picture. As you can see now, it's not there. And fortunately, rather unfortunately for me, I wasn't thinking that this application had to update ever so often. And sometimes the updating doesn't happen as fast as one would think. So what happened is for about 3 to 4 minutes, my son's aircraft had fallen off the radar. And I started thinking, oh my God, my baby has fallen out the sky. Now that it's running again, you'll see his aircraft did reappear. That was a relief for me. Now, while it was gone, my wife was at the airport that he was flying back to, and I started to call her to say, honey, do you still see Xavier? But I had to think hard and long before I called her, because I didn't want to alert her and have her all nervous too. And that was that hair-raising event that almost caused me to fly the coop. But you can see it updated, and we can see he's tracking, making his way back to the Olive Branch Airport. As a part of that flying is he had to talk to the tower at Olive Branch, and then they did a handoff to the Memphis International Airport, where he had to talk to that tower, control tower. And likewise, when he got out to Corinth, at Corinth, he actually performed what they call a touch and go operation. Essentially, he just simply landed, ran on the runway for a few 100 feet, and then took off again. And that's what's going on. So you can see him there coming on across and on his way back to the Olive Branch Airport. At this point, he is now engaging with the Memphis International Airport flight tower. And again, I just threw that image there in case anybody missed it. That's what happened when he did his first solo flight, and he didn't know it was going to happen. And that was his baptismal, if you will, or his initiation into you are now a pilot, right? Or at least a student pilot. In the next week, he will be conducting 2 nighttime flights as a part of that piloting process. He must fly at night. And that's what's happening this coming week, in fact. And once he finished this, he would have achieved at least 40, I think it'll be about 43, but at least 40 hours of flight time. And he will have earned his private pilot license, is no longer a student. And I liken that again to a parent. If you think about it, when your son or daughter or whomever it is, you're teaching to drive a car. At some point, you are not in the car with them. They have to drive by themselves. And I know as parents, we worry ourselves to death that our loved one makes it where they're going safely and then come back home safely. There you see Zachary's in that final approach to the Olive Branch Airport, and voila, he has made it all the way back. And this will about wrap up my speech. And so my closing comments is this. Parents, know, or if you can, remember when you were young and you were just starting out. Well, it's going to happen that way for everybody, whether you're driving a car or a motorcycle. In fact, I have a daughter that drives a motorcycle, and it terrifies me, but that's what she likes to do. And there you can see Zachary's flight from Olive Branch all the way out to Corinth, Mississippi, touch and go operation all the way back. And he made it one safe operation, one person, one aircraft. He made it home. And thank you so much for allowing me to share this with you guys. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
For that speech. Next up, we have Ms. Tony Britnum for our second speech.
Thank you. Thank you, Horace, for that. I do want to get a copy of that because I want my grandson to see that. He missed it because he should have been in class right along with your son. Okay, timer, I'm ready.
I got you. Thank you.
Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa is part of the educational process that we implement at the end of every year for 7 days, from December the 26th until January the 1st. Now, we don't have, like you all have a Chinese school, and then we have schools that cater to Jewish children. This is one of the components that we use for African children to teach them of their heritage. So Kwanzaa has been commercialized now. The United States Postal Service has commissioned 9 stamps to commemorate Kwanzaa. And you'll notice most of the colors are always the same: red, black, green, and yellow. And when you see Kwanzaa, or if you ever have an opportunity to visit a Kwanzaa program, you'll see these symbols. You'll see the drums, all different types of drums. You'll see a lot of the African instruments, because we have an international musicologist that comes and explains each drum and each instrument, and he does an excellent performance. We talk about the colors that we represent from the African American and Pan African movement with the red, black, green, and gold. And we have one guy who is a professor. His name is Dr. Alana Karanga. But Dr. Karanga gives us these symbols to include in our program. The centerpiece is called the Kanara, where you see my arrow. It has 7 slots for 7 candles, 1 black for the people, 3 for 3 principles, and green for the second set of principles, for a total of 7 days, 7 principles. The colors again are red, black, and green, and what they represent are the blood, red blood shed by Black people for the green land and its resources, which is gold. Gold also represents intelligence and memory. That's reading in law. Most of your legal pads are yellow because yellow helps in the memory retention. Fruits. We always give the first fruits of our labor, of our harvest, or any other endeavor that we take on. We always give the best in honor of our ancestors and our elders. What you see in the black back plank here on the wall, they're called Adinkra symbols. And they're the same thing as Indian signs and symbols or Egyptian signs and symbols. Each one tells a story. And I'll go through 2 of them before the program ends. But you'll see the corn here. It represents the children that we pledge to have. The cup is called the Unity Cup, which we all must participate in because we want to be unified in our family, our community, our race, and our nations. The Ankh. The Ankh is this yellow piece up against the wall, and it's a cross that means life. The circle at the top here is called the womb, and the shaft at the bottom here is called the phallus. And in unison, they create the crossbar, which is called the child, and it represents the family or life. The Unity Cup, I've explained that, and the corn. The mat. The mat is this colorful piece that you see all of the units sitting on. This cloth is called kente cloth and is woven only by men, the men from Ghana. And each piece has a route. There is an outline going from the village and coming back. So everything we do has meaning. And that's what kente cloth is all about. And there are different colors, meaning different things that we learn during our educational process, which mainly come from books. There will always be books on a Kwanzaa table, and there will always be gifts given to the children. And all of the gifts must be handmade. We cannot buy gifts to give to the children. They must be personalized and handmade. Now, the history of Kwanzaa. I've explained the colors already, but the history comes from Dr. Malana Karanga. Now, Malana is a Swahili name that means master teacher. And he's a professor and chair of the Department of Africana Studies at California State University. He has 2 degrees, 2 PhDs. One is on human behavior and political science with a focus on the theory and practice of African American nationalism. And he also has a second doctorate in social ethics with a focus on classical African ethics of ancient Egypt. Here is just a continuation of his education and what qualifies him to teach. The socio-ethical thought from Malcolm X, his Ma'atan ethics from ancient Egypt, Mod just means truth. There are 42 principles in that. Ifa is his personal religion, even though Kwanzaa is not a religious organization at all. Ifa, ancient Yoruba, deals with Santeria or Voodoo or Voodoo. And you have to look those up to understand those principles since it's supposed to be the oldest religion on the planet. He founded an organization in 1965 called the United States Black Nationalist Movement. He then founded Kwanzaa in 1966, and the first one was delivered December 26 and 66 through January the 1st, 1967. He was a member of several national Black organizations outside of the one he founded, and he went right along beside the Black Panther Party. Our program, the Kwanzaa program, we always wear African attire. It's like a fashion show. The colors are just vibrant and gorgeous. Not only do the adults wear their African attire, but our children as well, because it is a children's program. The drumming, we always have drumming, even during our lectures from our elders. They're playing the drums softly behind them. There's always going to be a dance performance. The dancing takes place as a result of watching the animals in nature, their strides, their battles. And we took these strides and battles, movements from the animals, and created these patterns that we dance by. And you'll also recognize that all of the martial arts came out of dance or animal movements, especially in Brazil, capoeira, where they thought we were just dancing and having a good time. We were actually practicing a martial art that deals with a lot of movement, up, down, high kicks, flips, the whole 9 yards. At the end of our program, we have a naming ceremony. And last year, I was the naming facilitator, and one of the members of Blue Nile was named Mama Malika, which is Queen Mother, Suja Mashuri Arika, which means she was represented as a warrior and mentor, and she was to be cherished and pampered. And on the last day, we have the feast. The first day, we always greet each other with Habari Gani. Habari Gani means, what's the news? Hey, what's going on? Or how you doing? And your reply or your response will always be the principle of the day. And there are 7 principles. Day 1 is Umoja, which means unity. To strive for and maintain unity in the family, community, nations, and the race. And this is one of the Adinkra symbols that represents unity. And it means a warning against deception and hypocrisy, which means not only should you not practice deception or hypocrisy, but you must be trained to recognize it immediately when you see it in others. Kujijagalia is the second principle that I've introduced today, and it means self-determination. To define ourselves, name ourselves, create for ourselves, and speak for ourselves. Ohini Edwa is the king's stool and the royal authority. And again, this came from the many travels of Dr. Malana Karanga. Here are the 7 principles, and they all have their own meaning and their own name. And I'll leave this in the chat box for you to download on your computer so you'll know a little bit about Kwanzaa if you choose to participate starting December 26th through January 1st. Umoja, Kujitagilia, Ujima, Ujama, Nia, Kaumba, Imani. These are the Swahili terms for the items that are on the table from the Swahili language. And this is the end of our presentation on Kwanzaa. And like I said, I'll make sure that it stays in the chat box for you to download and study. In case you have to participate, you'll also be able to share anything that you have learned. And I hope that you will take something from this presentation today. Back to you, Toastmaster.
you for that speech on Kwanzaa. Next up, we have our table topics. And so I'd like to turn it over to our table topics master.
Okay. We will now proceed to table topics. Our first question is, when was the last time you tried something new? And this question is for Dayton.
Thank you, Table Topics Master. I believe the last time I tried something new, I'll have to think about that. For a long time, I feel like I've been doing the same thing over and over again every day. The other day at school, we had Thanksgiving lunch, and for the longest time, I feel like I haven't enjoyed stuffing, but for whatever reason, I decided to indulge in some, and I found that it was fairly good, and I would definitely try it again. Oh, that's it.
Is it different from the stuff you had before?
It was definitely, maybe my taste buds have just changed over time, but I think I haven't tried stuffing probably since I was really little, so.
Have you started liking other food which you didn't like before?
Not necessarily. I feel like I've liked a lot of the same things my whole life. Like, I eat my burgers plain. I'm 15 years old and I still do that, so I don't think anything's gonna change anytime soon.
Do you like dressing?
No,
Wow.
I do not.
Oh, wow. And there is a difference in dressing and stuffings. What a
Yeah.
good,
Back to you, Table Topics Master.
Thank you, that's good, that's great.
Yeah, thank you for the speech, Dayton. For the next question, which is worse, failing or never trying? This question is for Xavier.
Question, Mr. Table Topics Master. Which is worse, failing or not trying? I would say not trying, because if you don't try, you can't fail. And usually, when you fail, you would learn from your failures and grow. If you're not failing, then to a certain extent, depending on what exactly it is that you're failing, you will not grow in that area. So, not trying is worse than failing overall. You don't grow from not trying, but you would grow from failure. Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you for that speech, Xavier. Okay, my next question is for Jonathan. Question is, what does your joy look like today?
Okay, thank you, Table Topics Master. One thing that I enjoyed, or something that I found joy in today, was the weather. The past week or so, this is a weird opinion, I would say, just for me. I'm okay with like really hot weather, but I really enjoy breezy, cooler weather with a little bit of moisture and rain now and then. So around 70 to 50 degrees is my favorite temperature. And I don't really like upwards of like 80 or 90, and that's way too hot. So the last few weeks, strangely, we've been having pretty hot weather, even though it's November in Bentonville. But this last few days, it's been a lot rainier, been a lot colder, and it was actually going to snow the other day, but unfortunately did not snow. So these last few days, it's been really nice weather, and I've been enjoying it because me and my brother can just go out in the field and it's not hot, and we can just play frisbee and run around. So yeah, that's something that I enjoyed today. Thank you for the question.
Thank you for your answer. I also enjoyed today's weather. Okay, next question is for Alan. If you had to teach something, what would you teach?
Thank you for the question. If I had to teach something, what would I teach? I believe that I would teach the art of teaching somebody else how to teach stuff. What do I mean? I mean, I would teach how to effectively convey information, whether by speaking or otherwise. I would teach how to teach. And I say this because that's not actually a specialty of mine, but I think it is useful either way. I think it is useful to know how to impart information, even if you don't have anything worthy to say. Maybe they will be able to impart what they know to somebody else. And in effect, it is a chain of information conveyance. If you tell somebody how to effectively communicate and express themselves, then they could perhaps share more worthy information to somebody else. And in this way, even by teaching them nothing, perhaps you will be able to do something with what you have taught them. And also, I don't really know that I'm not very talented in any other fields, so that would have to be my excuse for why I'm not able to teach somebody else something more concrete.
Thanks for your response. Next question is for Kai. What is the one thing you would most like to change about the world? It's a juicy question.
Thank you for the question, Table Topics Master. Wait, can you please say the question again?
Yes. What is the one thing you would like to change about the world?
The one thing I would like to change about the world. The one thing I would like to change about the world is discrimination, because it divides the world into people who hate other people or people who say that you do this or you do that because of the color of your skin. And I feel like that discrimination, if that wasn't a thing in this world, we would all be living pretty much in peace and not having disputes against each other and, let's say, different countries and different nations just because of the way we look or where we are from. And also, discrimination is not, there's two different types of discrimination, and sometimes it can be bad, and sometimes it's still not necessarily good. And I feel like discrimination really is just what makes our world not so great because of what it does to our people. Thank you, Table Topics Master.
Thank you for that excellent response. Do we have time for another one? Okay.
Yes, you do.
I'll direct this question to Horace. What do you wish you spent more time doing 5 years ago?
Thank you for that question. What do I wish I should have spent more time doing 5 years ago? Okay. So 2 years ago, there was a general election, a presidential election. 2 years prior to that, I decided I would become a candidate for president of the United States. So 1 year in front of that, I was working, contemplating entering the political realm as a potential candidate for president. So exactly 5 years ago, as I was thinking about running for president, I kept coming up with different ideas, different approaches to be somewhat unique, but at the same time, hitting upon the issues that I thought mattered. In that 5 years ago, I planned out exactly how I thought I would run. And then I told my boss, I said, hey, boss, I think I'm going to run for president. So that means I must quit working for you. I'm sure you'll do okay because I'm just a worker bee. And by running for president, I can focus all of my attention, channel all of my energy into becoming president. As you know, I did not become president, but the experience was one of a lifetime. It was totally worth it all. I was able to take my sons on the road with me as we crisscrossed the state of Tennessee, covering all 90, I think it's 99, maybe it's more counties in the state. And they were able to video my interviewing or my different conversation with different people as I was sharing my platform, why I should become president. That's what I would do even more today if I could do what I did 5 years ago. Further flesh out that position and hit the road again. Thank you for that question. Back to you, Mr. Topics Master.
Thank you for that story, Horace. Next question is for Ryan. What do you imagine yourself doing 10 years from now? Looking into the future.
It's good.
Okay. All right. So the question is, what would I be imagine myself doing in 10 years? Okay. In 10 years, professionally, I believe that I would still be a teacher, whether teaching at a high school or at a more my own school that I set up. I think I'll still continue to be a teacher. I continue enjoying teaching and enjoying to be an educator because I have a passion for education. I will still be teaching teaching technology related subjects like artificial intelligence, robotics, as well as my passion for teaching foreign students Mandarin Chinese. I also imagine that hopefully, if with God's grace, I will also be interesting. I will also be a hopefully I would like to see so my own two boys will be adult by then. They will be 24 and 25, 26 respectively, and then I hope they will have their own family, and with God's grace, they will have their little babies, and I will be a grandma, and then I will enjoy hugging them in my lap, and then also teach them. That will be a joy. So thanks for the question.
Okay, and that concludes the table topics session. I will direct it back to the Toastmaster.
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master. It is now time for our general evaluation. So I'd like to bring up our general evaluator, Mr. Eric Trent.
Thank you. I'm a Toastmaster's most honored guest. The evaluation portion of the meeting, I think, is the most important. But the evaluation is the heart of what we do. We become Toastmasters to become better Toastmasters. I mean, we become Toastmasters to become better speakers. And we do that by the evaluations we receive. But I've discovered something. When I'm evaluating someone, I'm learning something as well. So it's a two-way street. It's a win-win situation for the speaker and the evaluator both. Now, to introduce our first evaluator to evaluate Horace in his wonderful presentation today. And I'm going to start the panel discussion now. Horace, I turned my video off, but I stood up, but I was able to see and listen to every word of your speech. Vocal variety, your eye contact was wonderful. And at some point in your presentation, your picture really got excited night when you saw your son disappear. And I thought, and being able to track one plane out of all the planes in the sky is pretty amazing. And the visual aids, being able to track your son as he went through the whole flight, and you showed us that. And this was a speech that I like to hear. You gave this speech from your heart. This was about your son. So this had meaning and passion in the speech for you and for us. You brought us into your speech. And we know you must capture your audience attention within the first 2 to 3 seconds, or you lose us. And you did that. And your speech was very well prepared. One thing I learned several years ago is you made the perfect sandwich. The opening, the body, and the closing. Perfect sandwich. And as I sit and listen and try to think of something to challenge yourself with, I really couldn't think of anything. Was the speech really well done? I look forward to hearing more of your speeches in the future. Mr. General Evaluator.
I had some comments on Horn's speech. Horn's speech today to be an impromptu. I am your timer. To be impromptu, you did a great job. You stepped right up to the time allotted and you took control of that time. You told us a story about your son and being a new pilot. You did a great job. Vocal variety, eye contact, and everything was fine. I agree with Eric. Thank you for that speech.
How much time do we have? What's the time?
We have 6 minutes before the meeting ends.
We need to see. Do we have time for any more panel discussion? Our second speaker is a long time.
You have your timeless report and your grammarian report.
Oh, yes.
Do we have a second evaluator for Tony Britton?
Yes, that's me, Tom. I'm a Toastmaster, especially when you Toastmaster Britain. It is a great honor to evaluate your presentation. You educated us today. All you did me something I did not have any knowledge of, the African tradition. And I'm going to thank you for that. And the vocal writing was good. We did not see you, but but I think I know your facial expressions during this presentation today. And the visual aids, the PowerPoint, I really enjoyed that. I think we all did. Yeah, so much heritage there of history that we could all learn from.
Thank you
And
so much, distinguished Toastmaster Treat. We have 3 minutes, so you may want to.
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Our Marion for today, who will tell us how many times we use the word of the day, as well as how we use the King's English. And that, and please help me welcome Xavier Taylor to the podium.
Thank you for the introduction. First up, we had our speaker number 1. During his speech, Mr. Horace Taylor, I only counted 5 uhs and 6 ums. Although a lot of them were very slight, I still just barely heard the or the coming from you. And during your table topics, I only heard 1 Miss Tony Britton, during your 10 to 12 minute speech, I did not hear any filler words coming from you. Good job on that. Miss Anna saying, I believe I only heard 1 Mr. Eric Trent, while evaluating or doing the panel evaluation, I only heard 1 Joseph, table topics master, I only heard 2 ums. Dayton, during your table topics, I heard 2 uhs, 1 I didn't hear any filler words from Mr. Kai. Jonathan only had 1 Alan had none. And Miss Hyan, fan, I only heard, or I heard 7 ums, 1 It's a general evaluation. Now for our timers report.
Your timers report for this afternoon meeting. Horace Taylor, Toastmaster Taylor, your speech was 10 minutes and 20 seconds. Your speech did qualify. Toastmaster Tony Britton, your speech was 11 minutes and 14 seconds. You did a great job for a 10 to 12 minute speech. Table topics were supposed to have been from 1 to 2 minutes. Dayton, you spoke for 1 minute and 34 seconds. Xavier, 1 minute exactly. Jonathan, 1 minute and 15 seconds. Alan, 1 minute and 12 seconds. Kai, 1 minute and 25 seconds. Horns, you spoke for 2 minutes and 16 seconds. And Fan, you spoke for 1 minute and 37 seconds. Panel discussion on our speeches today. Toastmaster Treat, you spoke for 3 minutes and 36 seconds. So you did most of the panel discussion yourself. On the evaluation for Tony Britton, you spoke for 1 minute and 50 seconds. That is your timers report for today. Back to you, Toastmaster Xavier Taylor.
Thank you for that, Mr. Don Grady. And now, before we close the meeting, although we are going overtime, we still need our rules for the next meeting. Is there a next meeting?
Oh, next week we don't have meeting with
Oh, okay.
the Thanksgiving break.
All right.
The Chinese school closes next week. So we will have one in 2 weeks.
So in 2 weeks, then, we need our rules for 2 weeks from now. So first up,
Answer
Maybe-
what other topics he said.
all right.
And I will do the educational session.
Okay.
I will do the grammarian.
So
I'll be an evaluator.
okay.
Okay, thank you, Horace.
I'll be the timer.
Okay, thank you, David.
Everybody got the table topics master yet? I can do that.
Yeah, we did.
Okay. Is there any other like roles?
Yes. We have timer role. Who's timer? Xavier. We have Toastmaster. Jonathan, you want to take that? Just like Xavier did today. Toastmaster, the meeting host.
Why not? Sure.
Yeah, okay.
So I believe since we got all of our rules and everything, we can now adjourn the meeting.
I think we did. Yeah.
Thank you all
Thank
for
you.
coming.
Have a good rest of the weekend.
You too.
Bye.